you show the... Okay, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon to all the participants in day 3 of this forum on Digital Agriculture Solutions Forum for 2020 for Asia Pacific. My name is Aziz Al-Bahri. I'm a senior economist here at FAO Bangkok, and I'm joined with my colleagues Ashish Narayan from ITU. So if you give me just 1 second, I'll just disconnect this part. Okay, so we're about to start our third and final day of this forum. We've already had 2 very rich days and sessions, yesterday and the day before. These sessions were well attended, and there was a quite an engaging presentations and discussions, as well as feedback from participants. We have recorded the session in YouTube, so we will forward all the links to these previous sessions for those who didn't have an opportunity to see them, so you can review them at your at your pace or share them around. So today we'll start with one final but still a very important topic. We will shift gear to the whole area of digital finance services, servicing both the agriculture sector, but also rural economy and related fields. And we have a very excellent lineup of speakers to guide us through this important topic. Before I do, as usual, some very simple housekeeping rules that many of you must be familiar with at this time, having gone through these for us repeatedly. So please make sure that your audio and video is turned off or muted when you are not speaking, and also make sure to make a good use of the chat box and a Q&A as we proceed with the presentations. I'm not sure whether our moderator has joined us or not, but I think we are still waiting for Mr. Michael Hamp from IFAD New Delhi to join us and share this presentation. But until he does, let me take his seat temporarily, and then get on with with the topic at hand. And let me call the first speaker, Mr. Jagdeep Dahiya from UNCDF, to give a presentation on digital finance services and their applications in the Pacific. Mr. Jagdeep, take the floor, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aziz. And good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and joining this important session. And thank you for the opportunity. And special thanks to Ashish for bearing with me and giving this opportunity. So thanks again. So as Aziz just mentioned, that we'll be talking more about the digital financial services. So I'll take you through what we have been doing in the Pacific under the UNCDF banner. So I thought I'll have this presentation with you where we will try to go through or look through what broadly we are working on in terms of digital finance for the rural masses and specifically into the agriculture space. And then give you a few case studies, which are some of the successful projects that we have had in the past, which will give you a flavor of what the challenges and opportunities might look like. So let me share my screen. Or Ashish, you will be doing that? You'll be pulling out the presentation, or should I share my screen? me see if I am. Yeah, can someone just confirm if you are able to view my screen?
Is it, uh,
Yeah, we can see your screen, Jagdeep.
Thanks. I was actually not able to hear you. The voice was breaking. So thank you for the confirmation. So I'll maybe start with a quick introduction about UNCDF, because generally this is a smaller agency within the UN system, and in a very niche segment. So I thought it will be pertinent to just give you a brief about what UNCDF is. So it's more of a dedicated agency working on the financial side of the things within the UN system, and focusing largely on the 47 least developed countries in the world. Though we are present in over 50 countries at the moment, some non-LDC countries as well, through the non-core funds. And UNCDF has three practice areas, as we put it. So one is on the financial inclusion space, which largely works with the private sector, particularly the financial intermediaries. And then there is the local development finance, which is by and large working with the public financial management. And then the investment platform, which is perhaps unique to UNCDF within the UN system, where we are mandated and are able to do loans and guarantees and even equities in certain exceptional cases, which typically is seen as the role of the DFIs. So that's by and large what UNCDF is, and the interventions that we have, of course, are technical assistance, the investments, and quite a bit of advocacy around financial inclusion and digital financial services. So in the Pacific, UNCDF has been represented through the Pacific Financial Inclusion Program, which is actually a joint program of UNCDF and UNDP, and co-funded by the Australian and New Zealand governments and the European Union. So, as the name suggests, Pacific Financial Inclusion Program, the whole mandate of this program is to further financial services within the Pacific Island countries. So 6 Pacific Island countries is where we operate, and we have been into operations since 2009. So 2009 to 2014 was the phase 1 of PFIP, and then from 2014 till now, this is actually the last month of PFIP in the phase 2, from 2014 till now. And over these years, what we have managed to deliver, I just thought it will make sense to give a brief snapshot. So we have added over 2 million people into formal financial services over these years. And mind you, this 2 million means actually 20% of the population in the Pacific Island countries. So spread over 2,000 islands. So it's something that we cherish. And then more importantly, considering there is huge gender gap, 45% of our beneficiaries or the people covered are women. And the work that we do is by and large around 3 areas. One is on the policy and regulation side, one is on financial innovations, and then building capacities of the customers, which is in improving the competency of people at large. So in all, we have supported over 40 innovation projects. And I'll talk a bit about what we mean by innovation projects and what kind of engagements we have had in this field. And the other important factor, perhaps, is that when we talk about financial inclusion, we would want to refer it to a range of financial products and services which are made available to the people, rather than just a bank account or the savings or credit function. So remittances, pensions, insurance, they also play a very critical and important role. So briefly, the theory of change, as I mentioned, we have 3 work streams. The work that we do is largely through the technical assistance, bringing in experts, bringing the global knowledge, and then talking about providing grants and funding for financial institutions to de-risk them from delays while they are taking on new opportunities or new products and services or entering into new geographies. And that is something which I will be highlighting once we will be talking about the financial services in the agriculture space, because very often the financial institutions are reluctant to go into that space and they find it much more riskier. And then there is, of course, quite a bit on advocacy and the research work that we are involved into, so that we are able to provide with adequate inputs to the policymakers and steer the policies. So currently, out of the 6 Pacific Island countries where we operate, 5 of them have national financial inclusion strategies, and in fact, one of them already have a financial apex body for financial inclusion. So the one important thing is the innovation lab approach that we have. So for the different innovations in the digital financial services space, we make use of 2 models. One is the innovation labs, where we encourage institutions to foster innovations from within the institution. So we would create an avenue for the institution whereby we pick the cost of the staff, their operations, and then give them an environment in a very controlled manner, whereby relying on the overall infrastructure of the institution, relying on the overall systems and processes within the institution, the innovations can take place. So this is a process whereby we would want to get started with identifying opportunities, which where the institution is actually not at the moment or would want to go, or in some cases they have tried but failed. And then we would go into iterative testing, doing assessments at regular intervals till the point we are able to find a solution. And the institution is de-risked from this. The beauty of this model is that if the process is found to be successful, it's very easy to scale it up and then rapidly take it across within the system, going beyond the project site into the country, and in some cases even within the region. And I'll be sharing one example about it. Then is the approach whereby we bring in expertise from overseas. And as you know, Pacific is rather underdeveloped when it comes to the digital infrastructure and the digital developments, comparing it with Africa or Asia for that matter. Just a snapshot of some of our partners, and you would notice that not only the banks or insurance companies or super funds, we also have MNOs, we have fintech companies, government subsidiaries, so on and so forth, and church bodies. So it's a vast mix of players that we work with. So this was just to give you a sense of why I'm emphasizing on all these aspects is to bring you to some of these innovation projects that we have had in past, specifically to the agricultural value chains. And I'll be taking you through these 3 examples from 3 different countries and in 3 different areas of intervention. So this is the first example I thought I would share, which is with ANZ, and ANZ had a product called as ANZ Go Money, which is their mobile wallet. ANZ is the Australian New Zealand Bank, for those who might not know. And this was an initiative which came around 2015-16, when there was quite a bit of work that we were doing around the policy making. And on one of the conferences, it was mentioned that how do we translate these benefits for the coconut farmers, which is quite prevalent and are spread across Solomon Islands. And with that, this whole concept started, wherein there was the Pacific Coconut Foundation, which actually takes the dry coconut as well as the produce and aggregate it from vast range of farmers who are operating at the village level, something like small industries who extract coconut oil and then supply it to people in Honiara, the capital. So in this particular initiative, the rationale was, how do we make use of the digital financial services such that the risk of carrying around cash, and that to hundreds and thousands of US dollars being moving around on regular basis, and that to, mind you, not only by simple roads, but also by boats and small canoes, because there are quite a bit islands, and then the supplies are gathered from multiple islands and multiple places. So with that in mind, the ANZ Go Money initiative was started in order to build an infrastructure and an ecosystem development approach such that the payments against the purchase of the coconut producers in Honiara could be done through the mobile wallet of ANZ called Go Money. Now, the big challenge there was that, it's very easy to open an account and then ask people to do the transactions. But the real challenge is managing the liquidity when you are talking about agent points or access points, which are spread out in such islands and in such small places. So how do we manage the supplies? And for that, through multiple iterations, multiple models were put into place whereby small businesses, tuck stores in the islands were adopted as agents, and also super agents in certain cases, whereby a bigger shop can actually cater to the smaller agents and manage their liquidity. Two was to create avenues for people to actually use the digital money. One challenge in Pacific Islands, particularly, is the acceptance of the money when it is in the digital format is very, very limited. So if I go and sell my coconut and I get the money in my bank account, now I don't know where to use it because there is nobody accepting that money. So the merchant acceptance was very low. And therefore, we started venturing into other areas. And one of the such initiatives was the school fee being included, because school fees is apparently one of the big costs for the farmers. And we started with the digitization with just a small number, starting with 20% of the produce or the payout has to go into the digital account, and then the remaining still remains in cash, and then gradually increasing that number. One of the other characteristics which I think is pertinent to mention here is building on instruments like insurance and pensions. So later on, we had a very successful project with the Solomon Islands Provident Fund, and that was also built into it, so that the farmer now, once he gets the money into their ANZ Go Money account, they are able to pay the school fees from the account itself, and they are able to access pensions and insurance solutions, and remaining portion can still remain in cash. And of course, they can buy stuff at the agent outlets. So, and for those who might see these numbers as very, very small, when we are talking about the outreach of 15,000, mind you, in Solomon Islands, the adult population itself is something around less than 300,000. So we are talking about specifically coconut farmers, and who are covered under this program, which is 5% of the adult population or the eligible population. I'll move on to another example. So this particular example that I talked about from Solomon Islands is more about the digitization of the value chain, the coconut value chain, and all the players involved there were somewhere or the other linked to the value chain. This is yet another example, the Fiji Care example, which talks about social protection and having avenues created for people to have access to bundled insurance. And why this becomes very, very important is that insurance in the first place is very difficult to get and very sophisticated financial instrument to begin with for an ordinary person. And two is usually the life insurance and general insurance are taken separately. And very often you would see that in order to cover your different type of risk, you need to have multiple type of insurances. So this was a solution, an initiative where what we tried to do was to gauge the risk of people and particularly the farmers. It all started with sugarcane farmers. So the feasibility study was around trying to understand what are the biggest risks that they foresee or perceive. And on the basis of that risk, we brought in multiple players such that we are able to offer general and life insurance benefits as one insurance itself. And second and most important part there is how do we educate people and make this insurance product so simple that anybody can understand it. So if you see here, the insurance bundle insurance that was offered, it offered three covers. So it has a life and funeral component into it, which was a 4,000 Fijian dollar, an accident cover of 3,000 Fijian dollars, and then there is a fire cover of 3,000 Fijian dollars. So in all, a person can get a cover for 10,000 Fijian dollars against a premium of $52 per annum. So it was taken as 52 is because of the number of weeks. So per week you give $1 and you get a cover of 10,000. So that was the value proposition being offered. And we started it pretty small with a small grant of 77,000. And the target we had in mind was 24,000 people would be benefited out of it. And the model of operating this was through the cooperatives. And because it was through the cooperatives, we approached sugarcane farmers to begin with, and then added on dairy farmers, rice farmers, copra farmers, so on and so forth, such that over the period of time, the whole dealing with the farmers was through the cooperatives. So FijiCare would interact with the cooperative, and the cooperative in turn will work with their members in the cooperative. So that was able to reduce the cost and offer this better value proposition. And it became so successful that if we talk about today, there are more than 135,000 people who are covered under this same product, just within 3 years from the inception, I would say, in July 2017. And if you look at the numbers in this sense, the whole population of Fiji is less than 1 million, so something around 900,000. Out of 900,000 people, 135,000 are covered under this one single product. So it was so easy and beneficial for the people that the government came forward and took the responsibility by taking it on and making it mandatory for the public servants and all the beneficiaries of social beneficiaries, social payments. In all, so far, over 10 million has been paid in claims to over 5,000 beneficiaries. So this is one excellent example where a lot of benefit has been passed on to people in a very simple and easy manner. Can we have the video, please, at this juncture, which is related to FijiCare, just so to give you a sense of what it would mean? I think we don't have the sound there. Thank you. So this was an example of one of the mamas who lost her house and then covered under the insurance. So in the interest of time, I'll quickly take you to the last case study which I have with me to share with you. Thank you. So this last example is from the land of unexpected, Papua New Guinea, and that's where I'm generally based, but currently in India. So this is a project with one of the leading microfinance institutions there called as My Bank. And this was a typical, innovation lab project where what we tried to do was to try and figure out what is the key issues with the agent network models which are prevalent in PNG. And if you look at the history in the last decade, the number of agent points in the country has actually gone down. So we were really looking at what kind of solutions can be possible that would revive this agency function and make branchless banking a reality or an accepted mode in PNG. So considering the rugged plains, the security issues, the underdeveloped infrastructure, so on and so forth, all these challenges, we wanted to test multiple models such that we find out a mix of what would be feasible or what kind of a solution would be financially viable and commercially scalable. So that was the whole objective. And we set up within the highlands of PNG, an innovation lab with the Goroka branch of My Bank. And we picked this Goroka place because it is a place which is rich in fresh produce. There are coffee farmers, there are honeybee growers, and there are multiple other agricultural value chains which are prevalent. So that was the reason, and we wanted to target this particular thing onto the farmers, because if you are able to reach to the farmers and in particular, I would say the female farmers, that is the best thing you can do. So within the nationwide microbank, the My Bank Innovation Lab, we had a team of 6 people on ground full-time, dedicated, functioning like a branch, a separate cost center for the institution, so that we are able to calculate the financial viability of that particular branch or the innovation lab.
Jagdeep,
Yeah,
can I please ask you to wrap up the presentation, because we are eating into the time of the other presentations. So if you can go
sure.
quicker on the last case, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. So in this particular model, what we did is we tested 3 different models and worked extensively on creating avenues for establishing merchants who would accept payments. So here again, just like the case study of Solomon Islands, the focus was on how do we make access points where cash and the digital, they can interplay between each other, and they are made at such strategic locations where the money changes hand between the farmers and the aggregators, the growers, and in certain cases, exporters. So there were these 3 different models, branch managed, corporate managed, and distributor managed models that we developed. All of these models have very specific nuances which cater to specific issues and challenges. And finally, just to give you a sense, within this project, in spite of the fact that we were stuck by COVID and for multiple months the work was halted, we managed to achieve 90% of the target in terms of the pilot and deploy these QR codes, which you can even see in taxis in Goroka town nowadays. So that's briefly from my end. Going forward, UNCDF is adopting a digital strategy where the whole focus is of leaving no one behind in the digital era. And one of the core areas for us to work is work on agriculture and digital finance for farmers and related people. So with that, thank you so much for the opportunity, and I am happy to answer any questions when the opportunity comes. Thank you so much for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Jagdeep, for this very rich and illustrative presentations about the opportunities and the challenges of introducing financial innovations to producers and value chain actors. And one of the interesting insights I got from this presentation is that when you introduce this digital money exchange facility, it raises new challenges for farmers and for users in terms of how to use this money and whether it's usable or not, and then launches you into a new innovative ways to solve the new added problem. So very good set of examples, very appropriate. I think we're going to move to the next presenter, who will probably follow on the same vein of thought, Mr. Sanjay Srivastava from UNESCAP, who will be speaking to us today about his work on parametric insurance and disaster-related impacts, and of course the role of digitization in these services. Over to you, Sanjay.
Thank you, Ajit. Thank you, Ashish, colleagues and friends. Thank you for giving ISCAP this opportunity to talk to you some of our experiences. But before I begin, I would like to share with you in a very humble way what was the motivation of my participation, particularly in this session. About a year back, I came from my native village, which is one of the poorest districts of India, poorest among the poor provinces. And I shared with Ashish that I called one of my person in the village, small holders, who was impacted by floods twice in a year. So he lost everything. He's a marginal farmer, assetless, very small holdings, and he lost everything in the floods twice. But he was quite happy. When I spoke to him, he said, yes, I lost my livestock, I lost my crops, But no worry, I can survive, I can recover, I can cope. Then I asked him, what's the reason of his confidence after losing all assets what he had? Then he told me that I have a bank account, received the money directly to my bank account in the middle of the flood. And I'm going to receive the second installment after the flood and the final installment 2 months after the floods. So what empowered him is the money that came to his bank account in the midst of the crisis, in the floods. And that helped him to recover from the floods. Why this instance touched me is I know this person from many years. And from all the years, he has been coping with the losses due to the floods. And as a result, his children came out of the school. His children could not go to the school. There are many of his family members malnourished, and it contributed to the intergenerational poverty. So, you know how flood or disaster impacts smallholders, small and marginal farmers. But then there is a difference possible in their lifestyle, and that difference is possible because of the technology. So this motivation to talk to you about some of these experiences, whether insurance or the commitment of the government to the help small and marginal farmers, smallholders, what is more important and what works on the ground. So with this discussion, with this example, I will start my first slide. Can you put my first slide on the screen, please? Yes, thank you. So the farmer example that I was referring to was, and the reason for his confidence to revive and bounce back was the digital solutions. So my next slide is to show why this is so critical for smallholders, the disaster impact, disaster losses. FAO, I think 2 years back, they brought out a very comprehensive report of around 78 post-disaster needs assessment, the impact of disasters on agriculture sector, and especially in agriculture sector, small and marginal farmers. So that they are the one who were hit hardest due to the floods, due to the drought, and many of the disasters. If I take the example of Thailand floods about a decade back, the loss to the flood was quite huge, but very substantial part were attributed to the farmers. So they bear the brunt of the disaster loss. Why this loss is so important? What I would like to highlight as a key and very powerful message is $1 loss to a non-poor is equivalent to $4 to $5 loss to a poor, and that is mostly a smallholder farmers. Why 1 equal to 4 to 7 is because this loss contributes to his asset loss, asset that is his farm, his crop production, his livestock, and which contributes to his income losses, which leads to his consumption reduction, children coming out of his schools, then malnourishment, health-related impact. So there are many which contributes to reduction in his consumption, and that is what leads to well-being losses. And he continues into the poverty trap. And that's how this becomes intergenerational poverty. So disaster losses for smallholders, $1 equivalent to $4 to $7 in different part of Asia Pacific region, if you take a smallholder context. So for us, if we lose something in the floods, we can, instead of one meal, one coffee, we can escape. But for farmers, it's a loss to the well-being. So my next slide shows one example, what matters on the ground. So I would start from the digital solutions, how it benefited the flood affected smallholders through index-based parametric insurance. all of you are aware, insurance has been such a difficult task for smallholders. There are many examples, good, bad, ugly. But what I would like to tell you, a very good example, and why it is good is because of the technology. So this, my next slide will tell you that what has been the key challenges, why this parametric insurance has not been able to penetrate and reach out to a large cross sections of small and marginal farmers, particularly the smallholders, because the variables that is required for index-based insurance is quite large. And many of us, those who are working in this area, they know that to benefit a farmer $1, a government or a company has to invest $5. In many countries, these numbers are very different in the traditional insurance, crop, agriculture and insurance context. But when it comes to parametric insurance, it brings down very substantially the cost of the services. So how it can bring down the cost of the services? So you need to have, for making parametric insurance a success and benefit the smallholders, you need to have weather parameters I have listed down here on a real-time basis. You need to have a remote sensing based parameter which captures the assets of the farmer on the ground, vegetation index, soil moisture, crop stress, and so on. And then you need to have a last mile, which is the benefit part, a direct reaching out to the small farmer, whether it is a digital mobile, a smartphone, banking, big data, AI, or drone. So if I take my next slides, the next slide shows one of the example that was implemented by CGIR, International Water Institute, Colombo, with many partners, including ISCAP. What they did differently in a very innovative way was they made some investment in densifying water monitoring station in flood-prone area of one of the poorest agricultural belt of Ganga, Brahmaputra, Meghna Basin, India and Bangladesh adjoining areas. So for a poorest area, you invest in densifying the water monitoring stations. So that helps you to create a flood hazard module based on the water level data, rainfall data, flood extent, and so on. Then you invest in modeling, which is quite a bit available in the public domain. So this data monitoring stations and the model put together brings out the insurance payout structure. So this is a remote sensing based data, which is a real-time crop damage and loss assessment. So put together, it helps to provide insurance payout structure, and that is where insurance agencies, government, and development banks becomes very important. So all put together, all you put in one context, then how can you reach to the farmer? And this has really been quite successful and being scaled up. If I come to my next slide, in the YouTube video, all details are available. I have just given reference to it. What I wanted to emphasize here is the most important part is to reach out to a farmer's field. That is where there was a perennial issue of insurance not penetrating down the line. Not to all fields, but in sample side. What was the loss? Loss either before or during a particular crisis or flood in this case. So here you see the farmer's field, the parcel of the land, to what extent it was damaged due to the floods was captured with real-time Earth observation satellite data. And there was a trigger. It was all automated water stations, which provides before the flood, the probability of the flood, and then the actual flood when it impacted. And then it linked to the multiple interfaces to reach out to the farmer. And it has really reached out to the poorest of the poor farmer, including the farmer I told you before. This example was given this year the best award for an innovative project to benefit small holders. The right-hand side is the award given by the GEOS, that is Global Earth Observation System of the Systems Community. So my next slide is the slide that shows how technology can benefit if all are put together in a particular context. This is a flood, this is a farmer, Shweta, in a native village here. And you see Aadhaar is now making a difference. I have an identity and bank account now. Flood relief, insurance, all benefits directly get transferred to my bank accounts. And that's the reason of the confidence in smallholders. You have monitoring stations, the flood monitoring stations, you have a remote sensing satellite data, you have a digital payment system, you have an identity like Aadhaar, all put together in a context reaches to the smallholders. And that has been a perennial problem since many, many years, why small and marginal farmers could not get benefited despite being so much colossal loss to their assets in floods and drought. So this was one of the examples when you have to put all together and reach out to a farmer through the digital payment system. My example 2 is related to, can I have my next slides? My next example 2 is the digital solutions for drought affected smallholders. Drought is much more complicated than floods, particularly insurance to work or support drought affected farmers. It requires a lot of innovations before it reaches to the farmers level. And one innovation is the social protection. Social protection has been talked about quite a bit, but what is more important is social protection, which is risk informed and which also could able to reach to the small holders. So I will cite this example. This is one of a big success story. Can I have my next slide, please? This is the example of how technology makes a difference to reach out a drought affected farmer. You know, many of you are economists. I don't have to tell you the concept of pro-cyclic to counter-cyclic policy interventions. In case of drought, unfortunately, in many parts of the world, and especially in the context of South Asia, what happens is perennially, whenever there is a drought, there will be a lot of government incentives given to the farmers, but it hardly reaches down the line for many of the leakages. But what has been done in case of India, this is not a pilot, this is a large scale examples called NREGA, National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. You see from 2001 to 2016 in my crowd, there was a massive drought in Telangana, that is a Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, the western, the coast of India, that belt, which are perennially drought prone belt. But the government incentives, the government drought program, you know, it was hardly able to reach out to the farmers. And you see this trend. You have a demand for the work, demand for the job, demand for the employment, which is related to the drought. Both are declining. So it was a pro-cyclic trend. But the moment you introduce technology, that is what is called Aadhaar digital payment system to the farmers, you used risk analytics, that is the Earth observation system based drought monitoring satellite data. So Aadhaar risk analytics, digital identity, and crowdsourcing to the extent possible to validate your data, all you put together, you see the level of the benefit. This innovation turns pro-cyclic into the counter-cyclic policy interventions, benefited millions of the drought-affected poor and vulnerable farmers, landless laborers in India. So you need a technology which should work for the poor. Mahatma Gandhi, the India's father of the nation, he always quote, a technology that works for the poor can work for everyone. So we have to make technology, we have to customize technology to benefit the smallholders. And this is one of the example to reach out to smallholders in context of the severe drought. So if I come to my case number 3, that's the last case, the case number is the most recent one, pandemic. So COVID-19 pandemic accelerated digital reset to benefit the smallholders. Many of you could be aware, but let me put this in a particular context, how it benefited the smallholders. So my next slide is to show to you the technology that benefits the smallholders, particularly in case of COVID. What was really came as a big advantage to the smallholders in the middle of the crisis was a digital payment infrastructure already in place, which is called Dhanjan in India, which enabled cash transfer. So in the COVID transmission, when it was peaking up, the smallholder farmers, which provides like the real bread of means what I call the real food security in many parts of the world, especially in South Asia. It's a small farmers who provides the real food security. In the COVID time, when there was a oil crisis, the government used is digital payment infrastructure and distributed 5 billion cash benefit to the citizen, particularly the small farmers, through the digital platforms. The use of digital technology led saving to 23 billion. 90% of this by eliminating the erroneous beneficiaries. So that's the benefit directly reaching to the farmers. So naturally, from the many of the program targeted to the smallholders could benefit through digital payment system to the farmers. And that also includes the small the women farmer Dhanjan account directly transferred to their accounts. So as a result, what happened is the farming operation continued. Farming operation was not affected. And the best of this example is when India, the quarter two of India's GDP contraction figures were released, it was alarming. It never happened, unprecedented. 23% of the GDP contraction. But silver lining among all this was agriculture grew with 3.2% of the GDP. So agriculture could able to save the country, could not, the COVID could not impact it, the smallholders operations because of this robust digital payment infrastructure which enabled cash transfer and allowed agriculture operations to continue as if nothing happened. So my last slide is just to show you, ISCAP has some programs which we try, because at the core of this, the reaching out to the small farmers are risk analytics. And we have a program we call Asia Pacific Disaster Resilience Network. Those are all available. So this will provide you some examples how risk analytics benefit smallholders. So I think this was my last slide. So thank you very much for the opportunity. And I thank once again to the organizer for giving me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sanjay, for this very interesting presentation. I'm sure we'll have quite a few questions to bounce back at you at the end. But let me move to the third presenter, Atiq Rahman Siddiqui from Telenor, who will then give us an application from Pakistan called Khushal Zamindar, a platform for rural masses. So, Mr. Atiq Rahman, please take the floor.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Let me share my screen. Right. So my name is Atiq. I am part of Telenor Pakistan. I have been working here for 11 years, mainly in product and innovation roles. At the moment, I had a portfolio consisting of audio, video, agri products. I'll be talking about one of our flagship agri product called Khushal Zamindar, which we launched back in 2016. Khushal basically means prosperous, and Zamindar is another word for farmer. So the name of the product is a prosperous farmer. A bit of a background about the group. Terra Group's vision is to empower societies and to connect people to what matters most. We operate in 9 markets globally, with 4 in Scandinavia and 5 in Asia, serving 180 million subscribers. In Pakistan, we are the #2 operator with a market share of 27% and 46 million subscribers. Telenor Pakistan's base is rurally skewed, with 70% of our consumers residing in rural Pakistan. And 60% of the consumers still, at this point in time, have basic phones and not smartphones. The ARPU, the average revenue per user in a month that we get across the 46 million subscribers is about 160 rupees, which is about $1. I'm sure you guys and empowering societies is a key component of what we do. We've done 1 billion emergency response SMSs. One of our flagship projects is digital birth registration, through which we've registered 1.1 million children who would not have been part of the system if had we not done this. And mobile agriculture is also one of our flagship portfolios, fulfilling our vision of empowering societies. A bit of a background about the agricultural landscape in Pakistan. I'm sure you guys know more about this than I do. But about 20% of Pakistan's GDP is associated with agriculture. 44% of the workforce is associated with sector, and about 89% of farmers are smallholder farmers. Some of the challenges that the agricultural sector faces in Pakistan is extremely low yields relative to global averages, a lot of waste in the post-harvest process, a lack of basic information on latest agricultural techniques, weather forecasts, and market prices, and thereon, and poor logistics as well. Now, based on this context, I just wanted to first talk about why would a telecom operator like Telenor get into agriculture. Now, there's basically 4 main reasons. One, it was aligned with our vision of empowering societies. Farmers are a key member of the population. We have a strong, as I said, we have a strong base. We are really skewed. And with the extent of the agricultural sector in Pakistan, there was potential of high impact. And along the way, we thought that we could also develop a new line of business. And this started off as an experiment, really, back in 2016, when operators in Pakistan and in the region were launching 3G, and they wanted to divest into newer businesses, and also and keep that strong connection with the consumer that they might not have with products like Facebook and Google. Now, I'll initially focus on how we went about developing this product and some of the key reasons of success, and then we'll get down to some of the usage data that we see right now. Now, one of the key reasons of our success was the fact that while developing the concept as well as the product, we kept the consumer at the center of the whole activity. We talked to experts in the agri sector and built certain hypotheses, and then went into the fields and talked to the farmers and other people associated with the agri value chain to validate and test those hypotheses. Based on the results, we developed certain farmer personas, which I'll talk about later in my presentation, synthesized the data and formulated insights which went into the product and concept development. So application of design thinking was key to our success, and we were grateful to GSMA who were our partner when we were launching this, and who brought in a design agency called Frog, who taught us and helped us throughout this process. Now, some of the hypotheses that we built before going into the field are on the left side, and we had some wow moments actually while we were testing these hypotheses. So, for example, when we went into the field, we thought that the farmer's most trusted source of information would be the agricultural extension, which is a government body. However, when we talked to farmers, we got to know that they primarily rely on their own experience, the traditional knowledge that has been passed on to them by their forefathers and the community, as well as they try to emulate the behavior of high-performing farmers. The biggest wow moment was the fact that when we talked to experts, they said that the middleman is the villain and he exploits small farmers. But when we tested this out with the actual farmers, this was not the case. Yes, in some locations, the middleman was exploiting the farmers. However, in the majority of locations that we went to, the farmer was, the middleman was part of the family. And the farmers preferred the middleman because of the convenience, the ease, and the personal interaction they could have and the connection they could have with the middleman. An example I can give is that middlemen support farmers' children in their education. They bankroll marriages. They support the farmers in health emergencies, and so on and so forth. Another assumption that we had before we went to the field was that farmers would prefer their regional languages as the main medium of communication. However, while we tested this hypothesis in 3 provinces in Pakistan, yes, there was a general preference towards the regional languages, but majorly everyone also understood our national language, which is Urdu. Now, based on these insights and observations, we built farmer and middleman personas. Now, our persona encompasses the attitudes and behaviors, the hopes and fears of an individual. It also talks about how these individuals engage with their community and what is and the level of their access to information, how they access information. But based on the insights that we had, we built 4 farmer personas: the traditionalist, the experimenter, the receptive, and the progressive. And we decided to focus on the last 2, the receptive and progressive farmers, because they had an immediate need of greater information. They knew the value of receiving best practices, of receiving information over their mobile that could help them increase their yields and earn more income. And as I said, we also interviewed middlemen, and there were 2 personas: the traditional middleman, which sort of exploits the farmer, but there was also a progressive middleman, which was more empathetic and was very supportive for the farmers. Now, based on these, the interviews and the personas, we developed certain insights. One of the key insights was the fact that influencers drive the value chain. Now, this implies that if we wanted farmers to adopt an agriculture-related product, we had to get the key members of the community and the influencers on board right at the beginning. As I said, another insight was the fact that middlemen were investors and they were not villains, and they did not personify the devil, but they were very supportive of the farmers. The farmers took pride in their yield. They compared yields with each other, and it was a source of bragging rights for the farmers. So it was very important for them to have greater yields. And to adopt a new product or a digital product, so to say, it was important for them to see the benefits that they could achieve by using or adopting this product. Another key insight was the fact that farmers had a code. A farmer would not give wrong advice intentionally to another farmer. Right. So this was the process that we undertook while we were developing the concept back in 2016. Based on these, we launched our product called Khoshal Zamindar, which is an audio-based product, essentially because 60% of our base, actually 70% of the base at that time used basic phones. The product delivers through audio hyper-localized weather forecasts, agriculture and livestock advisory, which helps farmers increase their yields and eventually their livelihood. Farmers can access this product by dialing a code 7272. Now, even in the code, there was some thought behind why choose 7272. Now, in our language, 7 is sat, which is very close to sat, which means together, and do is 2. So this is also trying to communicate a message that we are with you. Farmers can access this by dialing a code 7272. They can interact with the service through SMS, but the key method that we interact and engage the farmer through is a robo call that we send out every day in the morning to all the farmers on the product. In that capsule, farmers get daily news, and I'll talk about why news is part of this. Hyper-localized weather forecasts, then a short advisory on their crop based on their location and the crop calendar. At times, we also add livestock advisory to this capsule. And farmers and consumers can access detailed advisories on crops and livestock by dialing into the service and exploring the menu. And we have a lot of detail in the menu. We even have direct numbers that farmers can call for specific crops. So 7272 is the main number, but if you dial, for example, 727255, there will be detailed advisory on the wheat crop. As of last month, we have about 8.2 million subscribers that were active on this service in a month. 1.7 of these interact with us on a daily basis, mainly through that outbound robocall. On average, consumers listen to 12 minutes of content of advisories in a month. This is the average across 8.2 million consumers. One of the key criteria for success that we evaluate ourselves on is the number of organic dial-ins by farmers. Now, as of last month, we had 41 million calls that farmers made to the 7272 short code. And with the fact that this service is so has created value in the consumers in the past 5 to 6 months, 90% of our growth has been organic, has been through the word of mouth. At launch, at the time of launch, and whenever we go to new regions, we first do an on-ground activity where we have community gatherings driven by influencers, where they tell consumers about the product and the utility that they can get from subscribing to this product. And if I've not mentioned, it is free for the consumers. We launched this service initially in Punjab. That is one of the 4 provinces of Pakistan, which is why we have 6.1 million consumers in that province. In 2018, we launched in Sindh. And there were a lot of learnings that we had in Sindh, and we did not actually go on ground before launching in Sindh, which created a bit of challenges for us, and we had to go in again and talk to the farmers in Sindh to fine-tune and optimize the service and the content as for their liking. 88% of consumers are males, and 80% of these consumers, of these 8.2 million consumers, still have basic phones and don't have smartphones. The average revenue of these users is even below our overall company average, and it is a younger base that consumes this product. Now, some of the key learnings that we had over the past, from 2016 to 2018, were the fact that using design in concept and product development was paramount to our success. Being closer to the consumers and employing an iterative product development and concept development process really helped us eventually in adoption, engagement, and scale. No one can do this alone. We had a whole bunch of partners that collaborated with us across this journey. GSMA being one of them, as I said, Frog Design Agency, CABI, who provided us information, and the Agriculture Department of Pakistan, to name a few. We also had local tech partners that developed the tech development of the service. Another key learning was the fact that community influencers are key to awareness and adoption. Elders are looked up to in rural Pakistan. There are still gatherings called gatherings around a what we call a hookah. I'm not sure what the English name is. And they smoke. They smoke and they sit on the ground and talk about their day. And they're very social. Other important thing was the fact that content consumption, advisory consumption, cannot be done in a way that is more aligned with preaching. It has to be more engaging. It has to be a conversation, and based on this, we stylize the content where there are protagonists within the product. They're talking about and discussing the benefits of the advisories as well. And one of the name of the protagonist is Bashir, and in certain areas in Punjab, Bashir is well known now, which was a very wow moment for us. However, some of the opportunities we saw was that there were needs beyond basic advisory, and the farmers wanted to talk to certain experts. So based on this, and I'll show you in the next slide, we added specific paid services on top of the free Khushal Zamindar service, which dealt with certain where farmers could talk to experts over call. Every geography that you launch is unique, and you need to go in the field and test your hypothesis again, test the content, the stylization, and get a feel of how the consumers in that geography will or want to consume the content. And the biggest learning and opportunity we saw was that while we were targeting farmers, there was a whole community, the rural community, that we could serve, and there were problems outside of agricultural problems that we could help solve. And this is where Khushal Zamindar, from a product, became a platform where we could get people, we could get supply of certain needs and offer them to the farmers. Now, based on these learnings, we transformed Khushal Zamindar into a platform which is now called Khushal Watan. And again, Khushal means prosperous, Watan means country. Now, this is a prosperous country. And we expanded our portfolio of products into two other areas in addition to advisories, which are insurance and infotainment, because we saw that there was a need of, there were problems that we could solve through these kind of products. As I said, there was a need for greater experts. So we launched an expert advisory service called Khushal Maveshi, which is livestock, and farmers can talk to certified vets and discuss their livestock problems. We also launched an expert service on crop, where people could talk to agriculture experts, and if they had specific questions, they could ask those experts those questions. And in the spirit of solving problems greater than agriculture, we also launched a service, a product where consumers could call a doctor and talk to them about basic health issues, and the doctors would either give them basic advice, but would also direct them to experts if the need be. insurance is the largest portfolio that we have, and we've launched health, life, and disability insurance. And more recently, we've launched our second iteration of a crop insurance, which gives coverage against natural disasters or up to 80,000 rupees. And there are a bunch of infotainment products as well. Now, all of these products, consumers can subscribe, be it insurance or advisory. Consumers can subscribe through a very simple process of pressing 1 in an audio call. We acquire customers through an automated audio call where the consumer is told about the value proposition of the product, its pricing, and they're asked to subscribe to it by pressing 1 or 2. These are all paid services, and the consumer pays for these services through their mobile balance. For insurance, the onboarding process is a lot simpler than traditional insurance. They don't have to give any document. Once they subscribe, our agents call them, get their basic information, and they start paying a premium on a daily basis. And based on the premium, they get certain coverage, prorated coverage in the next month. Now, this is my last slide. As a way forward, next year, a lot of our focus will be in partnering with agribusiness and development agencies, and figuring out what other services and products we can offer the rural community through this platform. We will be launching in northern Pakistan in KPK, and given the opportunity around COVID, we will be launching in Balochistan as well. Now, based on the fact that 20% of our farmers have smartphones, we have launched an Android app called Khushal Watan, which is again free to use, where we are now consolidating all our use cases and building additional use cases on top as well, which can basically only be done on smartphones. For example, we have a community on the app where people can discuss their problems, and we get about 7,000 to 10,000 comments and conversations on that in a month. There are about 150,000 downloads of the app, and about 45,000 people are actively using this app in a month. We will also explore optimizing and building more scalable tech and having a greater and a more data-driven approach to increasing engagement and consumer acquisition. Yeah, that was my last slide. Thank you so much. I hope this was useful and informative for the audience. Thank you.
Very good, very useful indeed, Atiq Rahman, for this very rich presentation. I'm mindful of the time here, so I'm going to give one round of questions for our speakers so that they can provide us some further insights. Let me go back to the first presenter, who gave us a good set of financial services from the UN agency perspective, focusing on Fiji areas. Can you please just very briefly touch on the infrastructure of your services? I mean, are there private players who are on the ground who are managing these? What is the role of government? How are you structured, to provide these services? Who initiate these services vis-a-vis the farmers or vis-a-vis the supply chain, actors? And then the related question for the new set of challenges that you have raised with respect to money or digital money not being popular among farmers. Can you speak a little bit about what are some of the institutional solutions that have been put in place in order to overcome these, or what are the next step forward in order to spread the benefit of these financial services that you introduced them with the cotton coffee growers and other supply chain actors. Over to you.
Thank you, Aziz, for the question. So I think just to go to the first question, which is more about who are the service providers and how does the infrastructure and other facilities look like. So that is perhaps one of the big challenges and factors to consider when it comes to the Pacific Island countries. So just to put things into perspective, if you look at Papua New Guinea, that is perhaps the only country which has a reasonable scale or a big size population, which is something around 8 million plus. But all the other Pacific Island countries are really small. So after this Papua New Guinea, which is 8 million population, the next one is Fiji, which is less than 1 million. Next would be Solomon Islands, 600,000, around there. Vanuatu, 200,000 or 250,000. Samoa, somewhere around 50,000. So when you look at these numbers in terms of the population, the whole scenario changes when we talk about India, Pakistan, or any of the other Southeast Asian countries, where the emphasis is on the numbers and you can play on the volumes. Here it becomes a very different mechanism altogether. Therefore, from the service provider's perspective, usually you will see that the services which are more costly in nature, for example, the telecom services, these are by and large dominated by a few players, and these players would actually want to reach out into multiple countries. So just to give some examples, like Digicel, it is present in many of the Pacific Island countries, and then there are players who are rather small in those respective countries where we have one big player. Similarly, the banking sector, if you look at the commercial banks, by and large, you will see the same kind of a trend there as well. So one of the aspects that we are very, very mindful of is that the cost of doing business, and particularly if we talk about the countries like PNG, where security is another issue, and where cash handling cost is roughly 10% plus, which, if we look at the Southeast Asian context, it becomes a completely different scenario. So in Pacific, this cash handling cost is huge. Therefore, the value addition is much better. But on the contrary, there is issues around the connectivity, the accessibility of going to the people is very, very limited. And then the density of population to make the solutions viable. So these are some of the serious challenges. Therefore, the approach that we take is in any of our pilots, we put sustainability of the model on the forefront, because we believe that from a development perspective, it's easy to put some grant money and put some funding to do certain aspects, but then it's very difficult to make it sustainable such that the private sector sees value in it and then they take it on their own. The second question perhaps you asked is more around the challenge of people accepting the digital money. So it's more of a challenge of accessibility, I would say, because for people in a typical scenario, they have to travel very big distances to get to the nearest banking point or nearest agent point. And the banking services at the moment are largely restricted to the urban centers. So if you go to the rural areas, you usually would not find any banking services. So that is a challenge to be overcome. And the only solution to that is creating avenues and building it within the system such that different types of agencies are able to leverage on each other's expertise. So we are even trying with the church bodies being as agents, farmer groups, cooperatives being as agents, so looking at multiple different type of institutions coming together with their own expertise and their own strength, so that collectively they are able to deliver on some of the things which individually they are not able to. So I think I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, thank you. Now let me ask a question to Sanjay. Obviously, Sanjay presented a list of very critical options in terms of disaster response, emergency disaster response, and how small farmers can benefit from these digital payments, and gave a number of examples. From your from your perspective as either a UN agency or a government agency, what are the requirements for success for these programs to be either permanent or stable or part of a structure, as opposed to more of more emergency one-off kind of interventions? But you also mentioned examples from India, and and those and how the digital India has managed to cope very effectively and quickly to the COVID lockdown. Can you speak about some of these the requirements for success that perhaps can be translated into more permanent structures within the digital ecology at the local level, managing either frequent crises or disasters, but also normal types of risks that small farmers face?
Yeah. Thank you, Ajit. Thank you. Actually, the point that comes really behind the success is the policy of the government to go for digital, solutions as a delivery model. So the moment you have a political vision that I have to go on a digital solution mode, then what you need a digital infrastructure, whether you need a digital payment system. For a real-time risk assessment, you need a earth observation, the data products, that is what is called the index, and all big data analytics related infrastructure. And then the last but not the least, you need a bank account to all your small and marginal farmers, because the system has to be seamlessly integrated. What was happening in the past was there was no interface between one system with the others. So with the digitalizations, you have a farmer who has a bank account and he has a mobile banking system. You can reach out to him through his bank account. So the policy of the government, the first part is I have to deliver the services to my farmers through digital infrastructure. Once that becomes very clear, rest of the things fall apart. Because that is the huge investment. You need to have access to broadband network to the every nook and corner of the country. So the real policy focus, if it is on digital, other things all fall online. Because the benefit of the digital solutions many times is not appreciated, because there are concern that it will create unemployment issues. There are a variety of issues, but if you have a political will that this is not a issue related to unemployment, but this is a delivery of the services in a very smart way, and particularly in the crisis time, when you have the impact is likely to be much more than a normal time, you need this kind of digital solutions. So Ajit, to our experience, that's the policy number one. From the ISCAP and UN perspective, why this parametric insurance was not successful in the past? One reason was the risk analytics. The most of the risk models which are available with the private sector, many of my colleagues, they have demonstrated. So most of the models what they were using were not very reliable. When you take it to the down the line, when you disaggregate the model output to a farmer level, to a small holding level, these models are not very effective, not very reliable. So many times I would like to quote many examples where insurance company in drought time has become very rich, but the farmers turn more poorer, mainly because this the assessment of the losses due to the drought or the floods or the disaster were not very reliable because models were not customized to capture down the line the risk scenarios. So on technology, particularly digital payment systems, and then transparency, and more importantly, the 3 years.
Yeah, Sanjay, I think you are breaking up, so we are not able to hear you at this point. I think we lost Sanjay, or he is, no, he's still here, but we cannot hear him. So I think we, yeah, I think we lost him. Can I, okay, can I inform Atiq Ar-Rahman if he is okay and on call?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, Aziz.
Okay, okay. So while we are waiting for our colleague Sanjeev to reconnect, I would like to just turn to you, if you don't mind, and ask you. I have quite a few questions actually from your very rich presentation, but I don't think I'll have time to ask all of them. One is, okay, so we're moving from the case of a UN-led programs with the UNCDF or ESCAP, and now this is a private platform that you have described for us, and the types of services that you are doing with farmers. You mentioned that your revenues are through the phone calls, and so I wonder if your services are financially, financially viable. Are you, are you receiving enough income to be sustainable on your own? That's the first question. The second question is, as you know, there is this growing interest in forming or investing in the so-called digital village concept, which is basically a structure, a platform where a number of service providers come together and provide services for farmers and rural communities. And this, this way of creating a micro digital ecosystem within a locality, a village or a group of villages, depending on the case. How do you see your platform playing into that structure, and what would be the requirements for it to succeed, and who are the other critical players that you see are really important or critical for you to have a more sustainable digital ecosystem structure in place to meet the needs of farmers, but also non-farmers as well?
Thank you, Aziz. So the first question was on sustainability of the products. So look, we are charging consumers through their mobile balances, and our paying subscribers, out of the 8.2 million monthly active users on Khushal Zamidar, which is for free, we have about 2 million consumers who are paying for these for the paid services, which include insurance and expert advisory services. And I can share this with you that it is a sustainable business. We have been able to do that over the past 2 years, and this year we will be earning somewhere around $500 million rupees from just this portfolio of 8-9 products. So that was the answer to the sustainability question. The second question of a digital village. Look, I'm apologies for my lack of knowledge, especially in Pakistan. I'm not too sure if this is being adopted or done in Pakistan. However, so the key success parameters for adoption of such services is awareness, and because of the context and the situation in the country where education and literacy is pretty low, um, trust is something that anywhere in the world you have to earn, and there's also a stigma related to telecom operators. Not so now, but it was when we started off. Was the fact that telcos sort of consumers thought that telecom operators were fleecing consumers by doing these daily auto renewal charging products. Um, so it is paramount for success of adoption of any of these services that you create the right kind of awareness through the right kind of mediums. And the right kind of medium, as I said in my presentation, is by first going on ground, getting these key individuals in the community, the influencers, the elders on board, and using them to create awareness and to communicate the utility of these products for the consumers. And it is essential that the government support us in this effort. The donor agencies, UN, IMF, the World Health Organization, and others such as these agencies are also essential to create that ecosystem where we have the right kind of funding coming in. An operator provides the reach and the monetization medium, and the expertise on the product level, and the agencies and government bring in funding and experts of and vertical experts like agri and livestock experts. I hope that answers the question, Aziz.
Thank you very much. I think we will have an opportunity to follow up with you on your rich experience. But for the time being, I would like to bring this session to the closing part. First of all, I would like to express or convey the apologies of our moderator, Mr. Michael Hamp from IFAD, India, who had a serious technical problem as his computer, was being transferred to a different platform, and he could not connect, and he was unable to join us midway. So he sent his true apologies. It's a shame for us because he's quite an expert in digital finance and has a long pedigree of work in this area. So we couldn't benefit from his wisdom. Having said that, I really want to thank the three excellent speakers who have opened the door for us to understand what are the latest advances in digital finance services and innovations and experimentations that are taking place, whether being led by governments or development partners like the UN or privately, as this was the case in Pakistan. So if you allow me, I would like to do a little wrap up of this whole forum, which was quite rich and varied and took us the last 3 days. Before I do that, I want to basically inform our current audience that we will share with all of those who have joining into the call since Monday the 3 sets of presentations which we have recorded on YouTube, so you could revisit a particular presentation that interested you or share them with other colleagues, as you find them relevant. So with that, I would like to go through a very brief summary, if you will, or recap of what we actually went through in the last 2.5 days. And if I can have the slides to guide me with these thoughts. So this is a joint wrap-up between myself and my co-organizer Ashish Narayan from ITU. So we will go very briefly just to recap, because I know that the people on the call today are not all of the, all of the participants that joined us since Monday. So next slide, please. Okay. So yeah, okay. So we started off with a keynote address by a senior manager for managers from FAO and ITU, who set the stage for the significance of this field, the emerging, exciting, transformative field of digital agriculture, and the growing need for its deployment and its uptake across the farm and the rural economy. In those introductory remarks, some of the strategic direction that FAO and ITU are taking in this field were laid out to provide context for this forum. This forum is an exchange of ideas, is bringing basically awareness to what is the latest in terms of developments in these technologies, what are the solutions and opportunities they're offering, but also what are some of the challenges and new dilemmas that we need to face in dealing with these technologies, whether ethical or issues of access or issues of affordability and relevance. Then we went to session 1, the next slide. Okay, so session 1 was dedicated to the topic, the emerging topic of artificial intelligence. This session was structured around this forthcoming publication by FAO and ITU, specific to the AI in agriculture, where we are featuring a number of maybe a dozen cases from a private, technology developers who were shared their applications with us, and we featured 3 of these in our session. We hope to have demystified the notion of artificial intelligence, because it seems a little bit too out there for many of us who are not familiar with the technology. But it is basically a set of logarithms and computer-based processes to enable the use and the exploitation and analysis of a large set of data and make some autonomous decisions by machines or robotics, or provide services to farmers across the board in the farming ecosystem. Then we move to session 2, where because I can't see, so I'm gonna basically I'm gonna just use my own computer to guide me, because I cannot see the screen given that all of this other thing. So session 2 basically was a continuation of session 1, where we moved beyond just artificial intelligence, but more into the advances in big data, in platforms, in GIS applications, and how they are being experimented and applied in agriculture. And there we actually not only we're privy to excellent presentation presenting concrete applications, let's say from example from RIMES, Agriculture Services, as well as the presentation on GIS-based solutions to support precision agriculture. And also we heard a very good presentation on the question of policies and enabling conditions that we need to tackle and that we need to address as these technologies are becoming more and more prevalent and let's say intrusive in many ways. So there are a number of policy issues that are now just being raised. We didn't solve them, we didn't discuss them in detail, but at least they were put on the table during that session. What we learned from that session, thanks to the excellent moderation of our colleague Hani from ITU, is of course the importance of thinking holistically. That was extremely highlighted, and the importance of data sharing and governance, which require some additional awareness raising and guidance development, as well as collaboration to ensure that these technologies are transparent, there is an integration and there is an interoperability, and issues of privacy and commercial interests are balanced out with the need for access. And also there was a suggestion that this raises the need for UN agencies and other partners to work more to develop guidance and to provide new frameworks for both local and global frameworks for data sharing and for standards. So that was the theme of session 2. Then on day 2, we shifted gear toward the food system per se, and looked at basically some innovations and examples from private industry related to traceability, platforms and traceability software that are being developed. We heard from a good company in Vietnam, Trace Verified, who gave us a number of examples of traceability software and their applications to smart farming. This particular company serves both, or have adapted software to small-scale farmers as well large-scale farmers in terms of a customized fashion. We also heard a good presentation from CP, agribusiness company, which is a large agribusiness food company based in Thailand, which has leveraged digital software in innovations in implementing their vast and extensive outgrower scheme with suppliers and farmers across a whole range of products. And they described how they are actually implementing these software, these traceability software vis-a-vis their suppliers, and also how they are ensuring the sustainability of the production by making sure the traceability goes back to all the way to the production sites and the production techniques used, but whether in farming or in fisheries. We also heard from 8 Villages, which is another technology company serving the agriculture sector based in Indonesia. They are currently serving 6,000 farmers and providing a whole range of services, enabling these farmers to access these services through their mobile phone and connecting them to markets, as well as helping them with crop management services. In addition to these private-based presentations and illustrations of technologies, we also heard from the government side, and we were pleased to have a representative from the Ministry of Agriculture in Thailand to describe their DGTF farm and other platforms they're using, like a QR trace for cloud. Basically, they are helping agribusinesses with traceability capability, as well as with enabling e-markets using QR codes and other digital techniques. Then we moved to session 4, which was dedicated to the concept of digital village model. This is a model which you can think of it as a local ecosystem or localized structure to bring about all of the useful and interesting digital innovation and services and make them accessible and affordable to farmers or rural communities or small-scale enterprises. And then by doing so, helping with the economies of scale, making sure that farmers do access some of these technologies, which could be too prohibitive in terms of costs, in terms of ability to utilize them. We heard from 3 excellent cases from 3 countries, starting with Bangladesh. And then we also heard from an excellent example, successful example from Indonesia, the Aruna company that serves the fishermen communities which has gained notoriety in the region for its innovative approaches. And we also heard from Vietnam and their experimentation with the digital village model that Vietnam is currently implementing. And then we moved to today, basically from there. So today we heard this. We just finished basically the session on digital finance, and and then we just had the wrap up right now. And I think just to conclude, by way of conclusion, just some general insights in terms of what we have learned from this forum. Obviously, this is a forum we put in a virtual form due to COVID. We had 2 iterations of this type of forum that FAO and ITU have done in the past 4 years, where we did it live. The idea of the forum is to bring about is to invite the latest examples of innovations and technologies and solutions that are applied to agriculture, and to raise their awareness among potential users in the government and also in the private sector. This time we went virtual, as is everything else. So we are now moving into the new norm of everything is virtual. We have learned quite a bit ourselves throughout the last 3 days in terms of what is out there. Obviously, we only had an opportunity to see few examples from the many examples of innovations that are that are out there and could be populated. So we now know that there are more and more concrete applications. If you go back to the previous slide, please. More and more concrete applications are being deployed in the field. We have touched upon, but not necessarily addressed in its fullness, the issues of policies and enabling conditions, because our focus from this forum was to shed light on the conditions requiring us to not only be aware of these technologies and see how they are being applied in a particular context, but how to make them more broadly accessible, which calls upon us to think in terms of enabling conditions and policies. We touch upon this in some of the presentations. We also are aware of the new challenges that some of these new and emerging technologies are bringing about, like issues related to data sharing and interoperability, and how to mix in different data sources. So all of these are creating not only opportunities, but new issues to solve, both at the technical but also at the policy level and the regulatory level as well. The different examples we heard from various countries gives us a sense that this digitalization is proceeding at different paces across countries. Not all countries are at the same level of advancement, so there are lessons to be learned from those advanced countries and apply them to those who are just starting the process. And this is where the role of agencies like the UN agencies, FAO, ITU, and others can play a critical role in facilitating that transfer of knowledge from countries to countries. While we understand that the development of digitalization is uneven across countries and users, there is we are constantly moving along with different processes and even terminologies, where we are now moving from the concept of smart farms or precision agriculture, which preceded that, to now moving into this notion of a digital village, which is a sort of a micro ecosystem at the locality level, as well as digital ecosystem. So this is a very vibrant and changing field, and so we have highlighted in this forum the growing interest in the Digital Village initiative, and as we mentioned at the outset, FAO is about to launch this initiative at the global level, but also in our region. And I think there is a lot of interest in this among the countries and among in the region, but also among other partners, UN partners, ITU and others in coming together in a collaborative way to move forward on this very exciting field. And finally, just a few thoughts on next slide on where we go from here. So we set the stage for a webinar-like forum. This is probably going to be repeated in the future, perhaps with the different thematic areas, but we continue in this general field of digital agriculture as we learn more and as we advance, for example, in our own initiatives. We also so we hope to address new and emerging challenges or issues that some of which we have learned about today, and we will continue to to go beyond this forum to interact with with the speakers and also with the participants. And and so instead of doing this every 2 years, I think the pace of this transformation is becoming so rapid. We're probably going to do more of these more frequently. So with that, let me give the floor to my colleague for additional insights, and then I would like to conclude with a big thanks to all those who participated. Over to you, Ashish.
Thank you very much, Aziz. That was so well put. I have very little to add, but let me recollect the history in the last 6 years that we have seen since we started this in 2016 and then 2018 and now 2020. Excellent solutions in agriculture continue to grow, and what we witnessed in these 3 days is a rise of cross-sectoral applications. I mean, today we saw how finance is being combined with agriculture, how traceability and QR codes are being combined with agriculture. Because if we look at the fisherman or the farmer, he is converged. So he is consuming all these services. And that's what digitalization provides. So digitalization provides the capability so that we can leverage on innovations not only in the agriculture and ICT sector, but also in sectors like insurance, digital payments, logistics, online shopping. I mean, during COVID, actually Fiji saw a launch of an online platform, and eatery became possible, and food, people were ordering foods online. So what is happening now is we are seeing this great role of convergence, and we need to leverage, and that's what is leading us to the popularity of these digital services and the holistic approach that you already spoke about. I mean, even at the national level, we see that countries are naming themselves digital nations. Like we've got digital Bangladesh, digital India, digital Pakistan, or digital economies, like Thailand has a digital economy framework or smart city framework. Now, what we need to do going forward, as the UN has rightly put it, is leave no one behind, because now when you leave out somebody from this inclusive society, basically you are taking a citizen out of the economy or out of the society. And that's why we are seeing these ICT or telecom services now not only being the area of subscribers or consumers, but becoming a citizen's gateway to all the services that we provide, which leads very nicely into the concept of this whole of government and digital villages or smart villages, as we may call it. But the idea of bringing all these solutions together is extremely powerful, which we have seen in these 3 days of forum. Obviously, it is an ecosystem-based realization, and as you rightly mentioned, that we need good policies and regulation, not only in the agriculture and ICT sector, but also allied sector like finance. I mean, we just heard from Jagdeep, and then we heard from Sanjay on digital. We heard from Atik on how these things are being moved into M-Agri space, and how do we create a sustainable model. So coming, obviously the emerging technologies like AI, blockchain, big data, 5G, they continue to be deployed, creating new vistas, and we have got new frontiers to cover. It's a very exciting moment, and I'm sure when you say that we need to fast track the space at which we exchange information, we need to fast track the pace at which we share the innovation is very critical So I completely agree with this. A bit to add these way from my side. What is important is universal digital connectivity, because that is very important. All the solutions would need to ride on that, and I think we need to accelerate processes on digital connectivity and digital inclusion. If you permit me, Aziz, a small thank you. I would like to continue with a small thank you note on behalf of ITU. So first of all, to our partners, FAO, the senior management was here on the first day, opening day, ADG and chief scientist, and also the ITU management, which clearly shows the commitment to this particular area. Obviously, on behalf of ITU, I'd also like to thank all panelists, experts, and participants who came. But I wouldn't stop before thanking the core team Aziz had led, including Anna, Alan, Dan, Caroline, Fawn, Surasak, and also ITU's team, both at headquarters. Hani, you heard from him, and in the region, like Ruri, Andreas, Janyan, Yachi, Sean, who have all contributed towards this. So with this, Aziz, thank you very much, and we look forward to working together with FAO in taking this forward.
Thank you, Ashish. And so I'm just left to say thanks to all, starting with our keynote speakers from day one, our senior managers, the moderators and the speakers. Very much appreciated their rich contributions, and also all the participants we've had, both online, but also through streaming through YouTube. As I mentioned at the outset, we have, we will make this proceedings of this forum through YouTube available to all those who have joined us in the last 3 days, so you can view them at your pace, or share them as you wish. There is also all of the proceedings, all the presentations are uploaded on the website, shared by FAO through ITU, so you can consult those presentations whenever you like. So I again second what Ashish said, thanking the team, our team, and also the ITU team. With that, thank you so much for staying with us today, the last day of the forum. Hope to see you very soon in another forum with another topic or another lineup very soon. So stay safe. Have a nice